part 2 of our Q&A session. If you didn't watch the first one, we put it out a while ago. Essentially, we asked people on Facebook to submit questions that they wanted answered. We like to cover this in our live sessions, but occasionally I get distracted if I'm 3 beers in. All I'm going to do is rant. So this is hopefully slightly more erudite, slightly more kind of like based on
information that you guys actually
need, rather than my opinion in the minute. Terysa, what's the next question?
Okay, so the next question is from Joe, who says, where are you planning to go short term, longer term? Are you still trying to sell the boat? When is the next meetup? What's your favourite Scotch? Did you meet up with your old pals in Charleston? So again, we'll go reverse order. Did you meet up with your old pals in Charleston? Do you mean Bo and Alison? Because yes,
we did.
We see them quite regularly. What's your favourite Scotch? I'm not a Scotch kind of girl, but
I've actually, seeing as I've come to America, I've started drinking bourbon, and I like it.
Okay.
It's probably not the good thing to be drinking bourbon, but I like it. I can't remember what I was drinking. Bo was feeding me something. Well, I was feeding myself from Bo's liquor cabinet the other night.
I'm quite enjoying all the craft beer in America. I didn't realise there was such a craft beer scene.
There never used to be.
Yeah. When's the next meetup? Guys, we are so busy at the moment that we haven't planned any meetups yet. So yeah, we're not quite sure when our next meetup is going to be. Are we still trying to sell the boat? We have answered this, I don't even know how many times in the last few weeks. Yeah.
She hasn't sold yet. Sorry, she hasn't sold yet, and if she doesn't sell by the time we're going to leave, we'll leave.
Okay.
There you go.
Exactly. And where are you planning to go short term, longer term?
We don't know.
Short term.
South.
Yes.
South to Flowrider.
Yeah. I think that we're still in the process of getting the boat ready, and when we are ready to go, then we will let you guys know what the plan is. I think that's all I can say about that. We're still not entirely sure. Because the thing is, you know, when we're down the pub talking to our friends, and we talk about what we want to do kind of more freely, but we don't want to put something out on YouTube and for everyone to be like, oh, so that's definitely what they're doing this year, and then for us to go, actually,
no,
I don't feel like doing that anymore. Let's do this or let's do that. So I think that we're just going to hold back on that info until we go.
Until we go. No. Yeah,
exactly.
That's a good idea.
Okay, so Stephen asks a question that is freshwater management related. Why or why not to have a watermaker? Do you catch and filter rainwater? Do you carry jerry cans for water? Is on-board capacity enough?
So we do have a watermaker. We also carry enough jerry cans for 50% longer than the voyage that we intend to do. So if we are offshore for 3 weeks, we will carry 4.5, 5 weeks worth of water.
Yep.
For as many people that are on board. So when we crossed the Atlantic, we had like 200 litres of spare water.
Yep.
Plus a full tank, plus a watermaker. All I would say about watermakers is, and I'll probably do a discussion about watermakers in the future, the one thing that I would change if I did everything again would be to put a different watermaker in. Ours is a low output, low current draw, and it makes a noise. I'd rather have like an AC driven one or a belt driven one that just kind of like came out with like 90 gallons an hour, and then we turned it off for a day.
Yeah.
That's my take on it. There you go.
Turn it off for a couple of days
Yeah.
at that rate. Why or why not? Should you or should you not have a watermaker? I think is what he's.
Just depends. I mean, in the Caribbean, you can get fresh water just about everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, you go to fuel up, there's a water station.
Yeah.
It just depends how.
What kind of cruising you're planning to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, we met a couple that just wouldn't sail because they didn't have a dishwasher on the boat, and I'm like, okay, so everyone wants different things.
Yeah, exactly. And do you catch and filter rainwater?
No.
We try to.
Not yet, but we will do, I think.
Without any success.
Yeah.
Okay. Justin McGraw says, how often do you change out halyards, lines, stays, ropes in general?
If they are heavily frayed, or I haven't changed any yet. I think probably our main halyard needs to be changed at some point, but we don't over tension it. So essentially the strength from a halyard comes from the inside of it. It's not the outside. As long as it's not frayed, we will, I tend to leave them alone. And the other thing is, if you have lines that are really stiff, if you put them in a bucket of like warm water to get the salt out of them, and then put like a cap full of fabric softener in, it just sorts them out again. Or if you don't mind doing this, you can actually put them through the washing machine. They come out really nice. Yeah,
I mean, we've had this boat for 5 years. We've been cruising, not full time, but kind of semi full time for 3 years nearly.
Yeah.
And we've not changed any of the lines yet.
Yeah.
So, Reno Redelingies. Wow.
Just say, why don't we just keep... Yeah.
Yeah, I would not be able to pronounce that. My life depended on it. Reno says, Nick's episode on how we got sailing was nice. I'm glad that you enjoyed that. How did Terysa get sailing? Where did you meet? He's also got another part to that question, but I'll answer that first. We met travelling in India 8 years ago, and I started sailing when I moved to London, and I'd never been on a boat before, really, apart from like a ferry. And Nick made it very, very clear to me before I packed my bags and left my family that if I wasn't going to take up sailing with quite a significant level of enthusiasm, then I might as well just stay in Australia. Was that how you phrased it?
Well, you'd never see me.
Yeah.
I'm a sailor, that's what I do.
Yeah, so Nick spent the working week obviously working 12 or 14 hours a day, and then on the weekends he'd go down to the boat. And so if we were to spend any time together, then I would have to learn to sail, which is what I did, and I loved it. And I think that I kind of got carried away with our sailing plans and sailing adventures before you did. I was pretty keen from day one to get out of the kind of brown water of the east coast of the UK and go blue water cruising. I didn't even know that that's what it was called back then, but I knew that there had to be like a better way to sail than kind of beating into 25 knots of wind. Okay, so the next question is, I'm interested in how your insurance works, both for the boat and for medical. Nick, you can answer that question quickly.
Boat insurance we have with Pantaenius, only because I've always had Pantaenius. There are other companies that are probably equally good. They tend to have a reputation for not playing silly buggers if you ever need to claim. And I think that normally with claims, they're normally quite big for boats. It is expensive, so we carry on with insurance. I don't think we would ever put ourselves in a position where we didn't have yacht insurance.
No.
Same for medical. We have medical repatriation insurance with Bishop Skinner, and they are a company that is a UK company, so it probably only works for the UK. They are happy to provide 12 months cover a year, which many companies won't. They'll be like, you can be away for 6 months. We can't commit to that, so that's where we are with this.
Yeah. Soren says, are you planning any upgrades to the electronics?
Terysa.
I think that's a simple no. We're not. Well,
no.
We're going to get an iPad. I don't know if this counts, but we're going to get an iPad for navigation, just as a backup navigational tool.
I think, I've got friends that have got chart plotters that are 20 years old. While it works, it will continue with the kind of the installed electronics that we already have.
Yeah.
If things go wrong, we will change them. I think that what has shifted over the last 5 years is that, as Terysa says, things like tablets are far cheaper and navigational software is far cheaper. And I actually think now that for the new stuff that's coming out from all the companies, it all links seamlessly. The only thing about our chart plotter, which is horrendously expensive, is that it links to the autopilot. So it works with the autopilot in a seamless way. So if it were to all change, I'd probably get a smaller plotter. That's it. Just the physical size of it means that it's got quite a high current draw.
Yeah, and it also takes up, like, it dominates the cockpit.
Yeah.
So we
don't have a smaller one.
Yeah. But no, there's no other electronics that we would change, I don't think.
Yeah.
Okay. Colin asks, my wife asks me this question all the time and I don't have an answer. It isn't glamorous. With limits on freshwater, how do you keep clean and clean clothes, etc.? Well, I'm not sure whether your wife is going to like this answer, Colin, but the truth is that you just have to make a decision. Are you going to use that fresh water to cook with, to drink, to shower with, or to wash your clothes with, or to clean the boat with? Obviously, the boat comes
Yeah, but
first.
here's the thing. Even if you've got a really small boat, like a 35-foot boat that you live on, if you put a high-capacity watermaker in, and you're willing to run the engine for an hour a day,
Yeah.
while that watermaker runs, your fresh water supply is almost limitless.
Yeah. Look, honestly, we don't have a major problem. We obviously don't have, long hot showers every single day like we do when we're living in a house. But we shower most days, and we certainly swim all the time. So we're rarely like that stinky, I don't think. We, live in t-shirts like this, and they're not hard to clean. We just have a little kind of camping washer that does a really good job. It does a 15-minute cycle. We usually put it on twice, and I usually put like the whites in first and then the colours in the same water afterwards. The water comes out black, but whatever. It washes our stuff fine.
Yep.
It doesn't use that much water. I don't know. I mean, you know, there are things like towels, they don't get washed as much as we would like. Bed linen probably doesn't get washed as much as we would like. But, I don't know. I don't think that we're that smelly. Daryl Scott Jones says, where do you draw the line in paying someone to do a job? So, for example, when leaving the boat in the yard, why didn't you pay for someone to anti-foul the hull? I think there's two parts to this question. One is that the cost, sometimes it depends where you are. Sometimes the cost is quite prohibitive, but also we don't mind spending money if we think that there's value in that money. To us, I don't really see the point in spending even a couple of $100s in getting someone else to do a job that we can easily do ourselves. The flip side to that is if someone obviously really needs the work and they're struggling, then I don't mind paying someone to do work that they need in order to like feed their family. But in general, our rule of thumb is that, you know, if we can do a job, then we'll do the job. We don't want to pay someone else to do a job that we're perfectly capable of doing.
Well, there's two things. One, everyone's like, why don't it seems to come down to anti-foul. Like a lot of the questions about why don't you get something, just do your own anti-foul, you lazy swine. Here's the thing, like, firstly, to anti-foul, it's like for two of us, it's what, a 2-day job? Maybe a day and a half?
I think we did it in like 6 hours.
Yeah, but you've got to scrape the hull as well.
We did that all in the same day.
Okay.
We had a few bits the following day that we had to clean up.
It's 6 hours work, but you need to be under your hull looking at it. You need to be looking at your skin fittings. You need to be looking at different aspects of it. You need to be looking for, if it's an older boat, maybe blisters, cracks. You know, we found a crack in our rudder. All these things that if you just got a yard to paint over it. If you're going to own a boat, be prepared to do the maintenance yourself. But there is an exception. We don't work anymore, so it's not like if we were still doing a 60-hour a week job, then I'd pay someone to do the work. At the moment, we don't work, so you know, there's no excuse. It's not like we don't have the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course I bitch and moan about it. Oh, I wish but I like doing it. There's a certain satisfaction from doing it, and I know that it's been done. We have other people that we know that lost their boat to a boat fire, an electrical fire. And they believe that was work done, and they got up and, you know, almost lost their lives waking up to the boat being on fire.
Yeah, because
So, and we can't talk about that because for various reasons.
But I mean, obviously, if you do a job wrong, then you've only got yourself to blame, and it's fair enough. And hopefully, you know, you the next time you do that job, you do it correctly. But when you're paying someone else to do a job and then they do it incorrectly, then you think, well, what's
there are certain things that I would always pay someone to do, like work with gas, like propane.
Yeah, and we need, obviously, you know, we've got the life raft service, we can't do that ourselves. We need to
go into Walmart and get some cups.
Gareth Child says, I have a question. My boat lives on inland waterways, and after anti-fouling I add blacking. If we boat in brackish water like estuaries and the occasional seaway, then the blacking has to be upgraded, but then I have a still boat. Okay. Do you need blacking, and if so, which do you use?
No idea. I know that canal boats need blacking, and I have no idea. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, no, sorry, that went... Yeah. Okay, that was quick. Paul says, what are some of the less glamorous points to living on a boat? Constant maintenance seems given. Always interesting to see what that is. How much paperwork do you have to do when going from island to island? There's a few other questions. We'll answer them one by one. So, what are some of the less glamorous points to living on a boat? I think that we've kind of covered that quite a bit. I suppose it's, you know, especially Nick, you know, head first in one of the floor lockers for the better part of a day, trying to fix the water pump, you know, trying to change the servicing the toilet's always very unglamorous. I think the Delos did a recent episode where their toilet was packed up and they had to, I can't remember what they had to do, but basically they all ended up covered in stuff that goes down the toilet. And
look, someone always, before we set off, they're like, oh yes, cruising is essentially doing boat maintenance in glamorous locations. I'm like, well, this is a new boat. It does. Things, they break. And it is a lot of maintenance.
How much paperwork do you have to do when going from island to island? That really depends on the island.
French Caribbean islands, none. You just turn up at a French cafe, like an internet cafe, they're like, check yourself in, you know, €10 to print out something. That's it. Other islands like Antigua, it's in cases 3-hour job to get in and out.
Yeah.
Different islands. So far the US has been tricksy. Morocco was very, very tricksy, and Antigua was tricksy. So I think they are the 3 most officious places we found so far.
Yeah. How do you deal with the general post, given you don't have a fixed address?
We don't have post. Actually, not having a postal address. I still use my parents' house as a postal address. Not having post there's always a way around it. The thing that really gets is a problem is not having a mobile phone. Not having a mobile phone number is so difficult because there are so many things like airlines and banks that need to text you security codes, or like internet, like social media. They want security backups, and not having a permanent mobile phone, it's just that's caused us a lot of problems. It still does, actually. It does. Not having a phone number.
Yeah, that reminds me, I need to put some credit on my Skype account. Fuel and water. This is still from Paul. How often do you have both? How often do you have to get both? How often do you get both, I think is the question.
Just depends. I mean, fuel as it runs out.
Yeah.
I think probably last season, despite the fact we motored a lot to charge the battery, we probably only put, I don't know, a couple of $100 worth of fuel in a year. And that was expensive fuel because we had to get some in Turks before the offshore passage. But yeah, fuel's not expensive. And water, I think we bought water twice in St Martin because we were in the lagoon.
Yeah.
And we couldn't run the watermaker.
Well, we could have done, but we didn't really
it's
want
just
to.
skanky water.
Again by Paul. Paul has lots of questions, that's good. How much time do you spend each day or week working versus having fun? This can include time editing, making videos, boat stuff, etc. Well, I mean, that really depends on where we are. Obviously, at the moment, I think that the boat work to fun ratio is completely out of whack.
It's 90%, 95% boat work. But, when we were in the USVIs, it was like we didn't do any work. We just buggered around and drank.
Yeah, and the BVIs. I mean,
so it swings around. It's, sometimes, at the moment, there's a lot of work, and we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Robert Skinner asks, what do you do for a maintenance schedule? Lots of people are very interested in maintenance. How do you determine types of antifoul you use? Okay, there's lots of questions here that we'll answer one by one. So how do you determine what types of antifoul you use? I think that's kind of already been answered.
We did that, the heavier the can, the better.
How often do you swap out impellers, clean pumps, etc.?
I would just say about antifoul. If you're going to be in an area for a while, normally people in that area will tell you what's best. They'll say what they use and how it's worked, because every area is different marine growth. The Caribbean has got very different water to kind of like the eastern seaboard here. So I just went down to the local Westmarine and said, what is the best antifoul for this area?
I actually there's another question just directly below Robert's, again on antifoul. Dennis asks, what exactly is antifoul? We should probably start with the basics.
Antifoul is a paint which is a bioacidic paint, so it prevents marine growth on your hull. And there are different types. The one that we have is called self-ablating antifoul, which basically means that it flakes off during the season. So it stops marine growth from sticking to your hull. Now,
we might as well talk about copper coating, because that's another question by Serena asks about copper coating.
Okay, well let me just finish on the antifoul. So basically you paint it on and it comes off and it stops marine growth, and we have found that in areas that we didn't antifoul, for instance like the prop, you get horrendous amounts of growth in certain conditions, like mussels growing on it really, really quickly. When we hauled our boat out in Antigua, it had been left at the end of the season for 2 months in the marina, and the growth on it, I think we had like 2 foot of weed.
Yeah,
it's not like a little bit of growth. It was
grim.
like, oh my. So that's antifoul. It needs to be painted on. It's part of a regular maintenance cycle. Antifouls, there are some brands that say it will last 2 seasons. Normally it's a good season, and that's all you're going to get out of it, the season of antifoul. And that's the one we use. Copper coating is a very specific type of antifoul. It's based on the premise they found out during the 16th, 17th century that if you put copper on the bottom of boats, marine life cannot stick to copper. So they find that they get this very high kind of like concentration, copper concentrated paint, put it onto the bottom of the boat. It's super expensive, and more importantly, the boat hull has to be prepared in a very, very specific way by professionals. You can't just, you've always got to take it back to like the epoxy, and if you don't do it, it will fail, but that is meant to last for 10 years. I Didn't have it done because we used to live on a drying mooring that the boat would sit in mud, and the mud just sticks to the copper coat and renders it useless. Also, I like to get under the boat once a year, lift it out. It is good practice to look at your skin fittings from the outside, to look at all the different parts of your hull that you don't normally see, and you will miss if you try and do it with a mask and a snorkel while you're in water.
Robert says, how often do you swap out impellers and clean pumps, etc.? Like, what is your usual maintenance cycle?
Once a year for impeller, I'll check it, and if it's got any nicks or tears in it, I'll change it over. Pumps, the toilet when it goes, like the jabs go like when it starts to leak or it gets really stiff. We clean the toilet with muriatic acid to get the scale off because it scales up really quickly. But that's another. I think we're going to do an episode on toilet maintenance.
We're fun one.
For you and me, yeah. Anyway, so that's that, yeah.
Compass Diving Sales says, Nick and Terysa, the maintenance that you do yourselves, did you learn at old school, or did you have someone show you and teach you the first time and then do it yourself moving forward? So how did you learn how to do maintenance? Nick will answer this question because he's the maintenance guy.
It's one of my best friends is a shipwright, so some of the big jobs he has taught me through them. You know, things like how to service an outboard engine, how to kind of take apart to service the carb, which needs to be done quite a lot. So he showed me how to do that the first time. Second time I did it myself. A lot of the other stuff is just things like YouTube, actually. YouTube videos are really instructional for many, many things. And yeah, so the internet's been a great source of information.
You used to have books. You did it old school.
Yeah, books are good. I tend to find videos far better.
Yeah.
You can get so much more information from even the stuff that's not spoken. So yeah, YouTube instructional videos.
Tom says, hi, I wonder what your thoughts are on aluminium hulls with a swing keel. Think OVNI.
Aluminium hulls, I like OVNIs. I think they're really good boats for kind of like hardcore sailing. It's almost like an off-roader, only for. The thing about aluminium hulls is, one, they get really hot. Like they absorb heat. So in the tropics, I'm not sure how much use they would be. I know that they've got a lot of insulation to stop that happening, but you know, we've got an aluminium hulled rib, and if you touch that and it's in full sun, you will blister. It gets that hot. So exposed metalwork on deck in the sun is, you know, not always a good thing. That's the first thing. Secondly, galvanic corrosion is a big thing with these things, so that the hull can be eaten away by stray currents in marinas, and I probably would suggest you have to have a special series of precautions to stop that happening. The only reason we didn't go with OVNIs is I didn't like the interior. It literally comes down to how it looks down below. Is this going to be my house? But OVNIs, I have no problem with aluminium hulls. The problem is that, you know, they're difficult to breach the hull. If you get hit by something like a whale, it will just dent. But it's also God's own job to repair it, you know. So
I think that Sailing Ran they've got a lot of they've got I think an aluminium hull boat, and they, I believe, talk about that quite a bit on their channel. So if you want to know more, then I would definitely check their channel out.
Is that the last question?
Yeah, we're on to the last question by Jim. Says, I'm glad you're back. Thanks, Jim. So are we. How do you organise your land life while sailing, i.e. checking on storage, managing flat rental, postal address, paying bills, etc.? Well, we have a storage unit that we keep all of our kind of furniture and effects in. You know, there are things that we sold when we moved out of our flat that we just got rid of. There's other things that we gave away. We sold stuff on eBay, whatever, but things that we wanted to keep that had sentimental value or that we spent a lot of money on and we didn't want to get rid of, we have in a storage unit. So we just pay that yearly. I mean, you know, that's fairly straightforward. Managing flat rental, we pay for our flat to be managed. So the idea is that any problems, the real estate agent deal with it, and we don't have to deal with it. But I think in practice that doesn't always happen the way that we thought it would. But anyway, we have someone else managing our flats. Postal address, as Nick said before, we use his parents' address for any postal address. And paying bills, well, all bills are done either like automatically or online these days. I don't think there's anything. I mean, it's all fairly easy to do via the internet. If you've got the internet, then usually you can manage your life.
So we find the internet when we need to.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that?
No.
No.
That covers it.
That covers it.
So thank you so much for watching this. Again, it's a Q&A session from questions we've had posted on Facebook. Hope you found these informative. We'll do one again because we tend to get a lot of questions now on different aspects of sailing that people want answered. So hopefully you found this a little bit, useful if these are your plans. So please subscribe to us there. We have Facebook there, a lot of other social media down there, and we'll be back with another episode soon. So bye bye.